Texas and Oklahoma are heading to the Southeastern Conference here in the not-too-distant future. Everyone wants to speculate, will they be ready? Is Texas and Oklahoma ready? That's like the trendy thing to say right now. Here's the reality. Texas and Oklahoma are not ready to join the SEC today. The beautiful reality of that as well, they don't have to join the SEC today. They got a little bit. But as they prep for the SEC, there's some interesting facets to look at. And to start with this whole conversation, what is the lifeblood of college football? What do different outlets put on different shows for extended periods of time throughout the entirety of one day? National Signing Day, because of talent acquisition. And talent acquisition right now for Texas and Oklahoma at the high school level, where you need to build it from, I think, is at a really competitive spot, right around where it needs to be. Not where it needs to be to win national titles, but right around where it needs to be competitive. Texas right now, time of us being live, number 3 class in the On3 consensus team recruiting rankings behind Georgia and Alabama. It's pretty good company to share the podium with. They have been top 5 these last 2 years in terms of their class ranking. Now, Oklahoma's in the top 10. With a new head coach chilling in the top 10, and Oklahoma's got number 7 class right now. And if they were to be in the SEC today, that would rank right around number 5, assuming Texas were in that conversation as well. So over the last 3 years, Oklahoma's had a top 10 class. So they're building talent to be able to be competitive when they get to the SEC. Like, the SEC is just full of Ferraris and Porsches. And if you're Texas and Oklahoma, you pull up with a bunch of like top 20, top 15 recruiting classes, you're pulling up in a Honda Civic and trying to drag race. Like, we got problems. We can't even really have a serious conversation back and forth if we're not having recruiting at a competitive level. And the good news is, I think Texas and Oklahoma will both pull up with pretty decent vehicles, pretty solid sports cars. So that's the encouraging thing. Are they ready today? Today, Junior? Probably not. But they're building this thing to be competitive when they pull up on the scene in the Southeastern Conference. Y'all, we appreciate you so much for being tuned in. If you haven't yet subscribed and joined this community, this party, as I like to say, we would love to have y'all here. Shout out to y'all Texas and Oklahoma fans that have joined us throughout the course of this last season. I've had a ton of y'all DMing me in the comment section and subscribing, so thank you for that. And again, if you haven't yet, no time like the present. Would love to have you a part of this thing as we continue to move forward throughout this whole offseason they tell you about. There's no offseason. College football is a year-round deal. Welcome to the party. Also, follow me. Hit me up on Instagram and on Twitter at JDPakel. Just love to hear from y'all and love to do more content that you ultimately would like to see. In the conference realignment conversation, positioning is everything. Success right now matters a lot for when you get to that next spot, when you get to the SEC. Here's what I mean. If Texas and Oklahoma both win 6 games next year, how would you perceive them? What are the talking points around those programs going into 2024? For Oklahoma, it's, where's this going with Brent Venables? Is this going to work? Is he ready to be a head coach? I mean, 2 years of 6 wins is not horrible. But with how he's recruiting, with what they have on that roster, 6 wins, are we sure? Okay, we'll let it sit, but I'm not so sure about Oklahoma. For Texas, the conversation is probably even a little bit ramped up to where you say, how long does Sarkisian have? How long does he have? Because we went 5-7, then we won 8 games, and now we're back to 6 wins. Don't think that's going to work. To switch that perspective, if you're a recruit and you're watching this whole thing go down and they're going to the SEC pretty soon, that doesn't inspire a ton of confidence, does it? You're likely saying, I think I'll go to Georgia. I think I'll go to Alabama. I think I'll go to LSU. Because what I'm seeing right now is not super inspiring in terms of how competitive they'll be in the SEC. So having some momentum around them is everything. Texas this year, I said it before, I think they're in a ROI kind of year. Give me some return on investment. There's been a lot put forward into that program, a lot of resources. They've recruited really well. Evidently, this is a show-me year for Texas. To me, I think it looks like a Big 12 title appearance is what I'd love to see from the Longhorns. For Oklahoma, this is a show me growth year. Let's get 8 wins. 7 wins is improvement. 7 wins in a bowl game. Show me this thing is trending in the right direction. Show me progress. Show me something that I could be a part of. Because in recruiting, I'll just be real, a lot of it is marketing and optics. A lot of it is making that sales pitch to that high school senior with a bunch of stars next to their name and saying, we can help you, and we're going to be fun to play for, and we're going to win a lot of games. If they can have positive trends forward this coming year, a positive trajectory this year, Texas and Oklahoma, that's going to do a lot for them as they move towards the SEC. So this is a big year in terms of positioning as the SEC entry gets closer and closer and closer. Big optics year for both those teams. Now, here's what I think doesn't get talked about nearly enough. Quarterback's everything in this sport. I've told this story a few times here. Bill Polian was the GM for the Colts for a really long time, had a lot of success. And I was fortunate enough to be at the Personnel Symposium this past summer in Nashville. And Bill Polian spoke, and he was breaking down what you need at different positions. Hey, at a wide receiver, look for this kind of speed, this kind of build. At linebacker, we like to see this on film. And he breaks it all down. And he gets to the quarterback at the end of his speech. And he just kind of drops the mic and says, if you get the quarterback right, that accounts for about 60% of your problems. Mic drop. Like that was just kind of the most simplistic way to put it. And a guy who had Peyton Manning as his quarterback, and I know it's the NFL, so it's a different game, but you hear what I'm saying here. I think the sentiment still rings true. For Texas and Oklahoma, they've got quarterbacks of the future. For Texas, Arch Manning. If you hit on Arch Manning the way that a lot of people perceive that he could hit at the college level, that changes the entire complexion of your program going forward. For Oklahoma, same conversation. Jackson Arnold out of Denton Guyer, Gatorade National Player of the Year. They don't just hand those out. These guys could be the difference makers for you. One, from just a gameplay standpoint, the majority of these teams' offenses go through the quarterback. As they go, so does the team go. So that's the first piece. The second piece is if they're successful, a lot of skill players, a lot of players in general will gravitate towards that. They'll see the Arch Manning highlights. They'll see the Jackson Arnold success and say, I want to go play for that guy. He can get me the football. Hey, if I go play defense for one of those schools, I know that when I get a stop on 3rd and 7 and I get off the field, I have some confidence that our quarterback is going to be capable of cashing in. So it's a ripple effect that it sends having the quarterback position right. And according to us here at On3, if you were to factor in Texas and Oklahoma into the SEC, these guys are top 3 quarterbacks in their class. Nico Iamaleava of Tennessee is the other quarterback. So you have the guys if you're talking about how you set up for the future. In theory, you have the better quarterback than Georgia or the better quarterback than Alabama. Texas and Oklahoma, if they hit on the quarterback, that changes the story as they get to the SEC. Because if nothing changes, if everything stays consistent right now, those would likely be the players that are leading your offenses when you get to the Southeastern Conference. So I'm excited to watch that whole thing unfold. Are they ready today? No. Do they have to be? No. Recruiting right now is at a competitive spot. They're in a place where they probably need to still keep stacking classes, but they're not pulling up to the SEC in a Honda Civic and you're up there racing with Ferraris. That's the great news. Positioning is everything. This year is very crucial to how they will be perceived at a public level, but even more importantly, a talent acquisition and recruiting at the high school level. Just show positive optics, show a positive trend going forward to attract the right guys to come and play for you and continue building on that recruiting base that you've built so far. And you got the quarterback spot right. To this point in the process, before they've played a college football game, you feel really good about who you have in-house. And Arch Manning for Texas and Jackson Arnold for Oklahoma. So for Texas and OU, the SEC prep continues. But the beautiful part about it is we'll get to settle it all between the white lines here in the not-too-distant future. But Texas and Oklahoma set for the SEC very, very soon. Hey y'all, thanks so much for watching. Subscribe to the channel here to make sure you don't miss an episode of The Hard Count. Also be sure to check out other videos on the On3 YouTube channel.